There'll be a
There we go.
few late joiners. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. This will be the 7th of our Zoom presentations. And tonight we introduce John Reid from the National Manufacturing Institute of Scotland. John graduated from Strathclyde, the University of Strathclyde, with an MEng in Manufacturing Sciences and Engineering. He joined the Michelin Tire Company in 1988, where he held a number of roles, becoming General Manager in 2010 and leading a major transformation of the Dundee site, including construction of a 20,000 square metre warehouse employing 850 people. In 2019, he led the creation of the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park, focusing on sustainable transport and low-carbon energy. John is a member of the Scottish Apprentice Advisory Board and a director of the Centre for Engineering Education and Development. John was appointed Chief Executive Officer of the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland in August 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, John Reid.
Hi guys, thanks very much, Paul. I don't think I've ever had an introduction like that, so that was a bit special. So good evening everyone, and thanks for joining the call tonight. I very much appreciate the opportunity to introduce you to NMIS, or the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland. In my opinion, it's the biggest and most significant and most focused investment that's been made in the support for manufacturing in Scotland for decades, possibly ever, certainly in my time. So it's a real privilege for a guy who's spent his entire career in manufacturing to get the opportunity to work with a team so focused on the sector that I'm very passionate about. So I'm just going to take you through a slide pack today to give you an overview of what we're doing, what we're about, what our focuses are. I would preface all that by saying that the National Manufacturing Institute Scotland really started its work early last year. So we signed our contract with Scottish Government and SE around about May last year. So it's an organisation that's still in a very steep growth period and with a lot of start-up aspects to it. So inspiring the future of manufacturing is our agenda. So what's the model then? So it's a group of industry-led manufacturing, research and development, innovation and skills facilities supported by a network of partners across Scotland. The idea is that we pull together industry, academia and the public sector to work on groundbreaking manufacturing research and innovation and provide and support that transformation to all the companies across Scotland with the aim of transforming productivity, making them more competitive, boosting the skills of our current and our future workforces. So that's the kind of the black and white script from the government boys. What I'm going to show you now is very much a draft. It's a work in progress. So we are reviewing and refreshing our vision. The reason we're doing that is that in 2016, when the original concept was pulled together, the world was completely different. We didn't have Brexit to deal with. We didn't have the COVID-19 pandemic, and we weren't fully lined up in front of the climate emergency. So the world has turned a few times. The priorities and the context are different. So we thought it would be the right time to take stock and review our vision. So what you see in front of you is the work in progress at the moment. So when it finally gets published, it's likely to be different to this. But hopefully it'll give you an insight and a flavour for what we're doing and how we're going about it. So as I say, inspiring the future of manufacturing. And our mission is to transform manufacturing in Scotland, creating significant growth and employment in sustainable supply chains, attracting and inspiring the best companies, technology and people in a coordinated and collaborative innovation landscape through national leadership and world-class research, innovation and skills development. Our priority areas, so the areas we are focusing on as an organisation to make ourselves able to deliver all that. Firstly, research and innovation. So like our overall vision, we're still finalising our research strategy. but it will be ultimately aligned with Scottish and UK government priority themes, so digital transformation, all things net zero, lightweighting, resilient manufacturing, and a few other things. In terms of resilience, one of the agendas we've clearly got in manufacturing is how do we support companies through the hugely disrupted period they're in at the moment, and then recover and then develop their future. So we are working with the Scottish Government on the manufacturing recovery plan, and we're also looking at how we can get involved with and leverage some of the opportunities within the UK levelling up plan. The development of NMIS itself is clearly a priority. As I said earlier on, we're a young organisation. We have about 250 scientists, research engineers and others, and technicians in the team at the moment. And just over a year ago, we were probably less than half of that. So it's grown very quickly. Clearly, we need to build a team that's effective and can deliver the very high expectations that we all have for ourselves. So organisation capable of delivering the NMIS vision, and through exceptional staff and stakeholder engagement. So we recognise that we're not doing this in isolation. We have stakeholders out there, and we need to make sure we're completely in line with them and their needs. Operational excellence. We reckon that in manufacturing, as the Scottish Institute, we need to be a reference in all things manufacturing. So we need to deliver the same kind of excellence that our partner and member companies deliver in their own organisations. And when anyone comes to our site, they can recognise immediately a very high standard of performance and behaviour. Customer service. We are a not-for-profit organisation. We only exist to serve our customers, who are the manufacturing sector in Scotland and beyond, if appropriate. And what we need to do is make sure that we understand the market fully, the customer needs, and really important, have an adapted, agile, cost-effective and flexible approach, because part of our big next step is to engage with SMEs. So I think you guys probably know that more than 95% of the manufacturing footprint in Scotland are SMEs. So if we're going to make any sizable impact, we need to be able to make an impact with SMEs. So we need to be able to create a flexible offering that can adapt to the needs and resources of every company in Scotland. Capability and resources. We're working through the creation of our world-class facility. I'll show you some visuals on that shortly. We already have a couple of technology centres, and we are filling that full of the best technology and the best people, with the aim of supporting the companies in Scotland that need our support in innovation, development and skills. So fundamentally, we do a certain service for manufacturing companies, and that's really about how do we help them accelerate their innovation and de-risk it by taking that burden off them, demonstrating new technologies and processes. We're working in a lot of supply chain development. One of the examples very early in our organisation's life was last year. We got involved in the PPE supply chain during the COVID pandemic, and at the time, if you remember, there were lots of issues with supply of masks and all the other associated PPE. The NMIS team got involved with Scottish Government, and at the end of all that work, we were able to support the creation of a PPE industry in Scotland, a supply chain in Scotland, which now produces more than 50% of all the PPE required in Scotland. And if you take away the specific of gloves, it produces about 90% of the PPE required in Scotland. And that was done in a very, very short space of time. So it shows the power of collaborative working and the focus that we can bring to the development of the supply chain. So we give access to the most modern equipment. We allow companies to prototype, and we support their prototyping. And the idea is to help them scale up their ideas into industrial propositions. And as I said earlier on, de-risk their investment. And it's particularly important for the kind of resource-strapped organisations in terms of finance, but also the disruption that innovation can have for your normal day-to-day operating. So the other big part of what we do is work on skills development, and I'll talk to you about how we're creating our manufacturing skills academy. And the other service we provide for Scotland and Scottish companies is to try and attract inward investment on a global scale. Early days there, but I'll show you some of the companies we're already partnered with, and you can see we've got some significant players already. So where we fit in the whole process is between 4 and 6 on the TRL scale. So it's really about developing applied research opportunities and then helping companies and organisations take those ideas into commercial industrial application. Our resources, so the little table on the little picture on the screen there shows what we are made up of at the moment. So we've got the Advanced Form and Research Centre, which some of you may have worked with. That's been around for almost 10 years. We've also got another specialist centre called the Lightweight Manufacturing Centre, and we're building the Digital Factory, the Collaboration Hub, and the Manufacturing Skills Academy as we speak. We also have quite a significant network that we operate within. We're one of the Catapult sites in the UK, and I'll give you a quick overview of them shortly. We've also created something called our temporary workshop space, which is really a kind of pop-up factory opportunity for companies to bring their technology alongside us, and then we help them prove it, test it, and make their prototype products. In terms of our strategic innovation priorities as we see them at the moment, as I said earlier on, we're still formalising this, but all things net zero, clearly. Hydrogen is a huge opportunity for Scotland. Electrification is up and running. Resource efficient manufacturing, so all things reducing waste, recycling, etc. Energy generation, post-COVID regeneration, I talked about that earlier on. Resilient UK manufacturing, so that the work that we are doing with companies to help them survive this really challenging period and then develop their solutions for the future. And resilient UK manufacturing in a number of different aspects, but one of them is with Brexit and the reflection of COVID, the onshoring and reshoring of capability in Scotland and the supply chains that go with it. So that is a big opportunity for us going forward. Digital transformation, that is, basically that is now a fundamental. So organisations succeeding in the future are going to be more and more reliant on that base level capability of digital. Lightweighting, so all things lightweight. If you're trying to conserve energy of any type, then you want whatever you're moving around, you want it to be as light as possible. Space, there are significant space opportunities. There are more satellite related activities in Glasgow than there are anywhere else outside of California, I think. And skills, and all of that new technology and capability underpinned by the right skills. So where are we? You can see the picture there of Glasgow Airport. The Afrc, the Advanced Form and Research Centre, is to the north side of the airport. The Lightweight Manufacturing Centre is on the south, and NMIS is going to be somewhere in the middle. So why are we going to be there, and what's the logic there? We're going to be part of what is called the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District Scotland, and ourselves, along with the Medicines Manufacturing Innovation Centre, are there to create an anchor, so a technology anchor for companies that need support, companies that are bringing in new opportunities, new investments. The idea is that they want to cluster around ourselves and the NMIS because they've got access to the best technology, the best capability and competencies, and also somewhere they can send their people to be trained in these latest technologies. It's a big site, so 52 hectares. It's well positioned, and it's beside Glasgow Airport, and it's got excellent connectivity. And that is under construction as well at the moment, and hopefully all that infrastructure will be in place by the end of this year. Looking more specifically at NMIS then, I've got a little fly through. It worked earlier on, so fingers crossed it will work this time. This will give you a bit of a visual clue as to how things are going to be structured and organised, and give you an insight into what we hope, and it will be an inspiring world-class facility. hopefully you managed to see and hear that okay. You know, it's just a visual rendering at the moment, but I think you can see it's going to be a really amazing place to work and come together and work with other companies and organisations. In terms of the build at the moment, you can see there the steelwork starting. So by the end of February, we just had that part of the programme operating. You can see obviously we're on the west coast of Scotland, so you've got a bit of snow there. Although there was one picture with the sun out, which is probably the right ratio, 1 in 4 days. Where we are now, so very quickly after that, so this is the picture at the end of March. We're looking for we'll get the latest ones fairly soon, but you can see how quickly the steel frame's up there. So it's an 11,500 square metre footprint. It's going to be on 2 levels. I think if you remember from the fly through the building, you can see that it's big, airy, an impressive place to be. There's access for the public, so much of the facility is going to be accessible by the public. So our opportunity there is to not only inspire engineers and companies and other organisations, but also the people from around us in the Renfrewshire area, Glasgow area. There's going to be a cafe, there's going to be places where we can bring school kids in to see the technology. And it's really a showcase for Scottish manufacturing and Scottish technology, as well as a practical research and innovation facility to support companies. There'll be about 250 to 300 of our research engineers and technicians in that facility. And we're also looking at how we can pull together some of the other appropriate support agencies, for example, SMAS, Scottish Enterprise, Skills Development Scotland. And the idea is that companies can come to us, and it's almost a one-stop shop. If you're in manufacturing, all the kind of services and support you need, you can get connected to it through our facility. So it's a really exciting proposition. At the moment, we're all sitting virtually in our living rooms and kitchens like most people. But our facility, the Afrc, has continued to operate throughout the COVID pandemic with a skeleton crew, basically the technicians and engineers working on the machinery on our research projects. So it's going to be great for us all to get into that amazing facility. It should be completed middle of next year, and we think once we've got all fitted out, ready for opening, it will probably be about September before we've got the doors open to the public. So as I said earlier on, we're still in a very much a development stage. Although, as I said earlier on, we have got 250 members of staff, and a particular element of what we're doing is the digital piece. We've got around 50 engineers in the digital team at the moment, and they're all pretty busy and active, so we are open for business. In terms of our current membership, these guys are the members we have through the AFRC. Many of them are talking about dual memberships or additional memberships in NMIS. And there are a queue of others that are already interested in coming into the facilities. So that we've got a pipeline of about 50 new members waiting to be signed up, which is fantastic news for us. So you can see on the screen there some really big names, not only just in the UK, but true multinationals, aerospace. You've got Robert Duval, Baker Hughes, Siemens. And, you guys know these companies as well as I do. So I'm not going to take you through every single one of them, but it's just to give you a flavour and an idea of our network as it stands at the moment. So coming back to our facilities then, I described it earlier on, we've already got a couple of technical specialist areas. Advanced Forming Research Centre. So some of you have probably been aware of the AFRC or done work with the AFRC or know people who are there or got some other connections. AFRC is was part of the original high-value manufacturing Catapult when it was set up in the UK, and it was the only site in Scotland, and it remains the only site in Scotland. That will evolve into the overall NMIS proposition. It's a specialist centre around all things forging and forming, materials, analytical modelling, and all things metal and alloys. So it's a real niche specific market. There aren't that many companies in Scotland that need that kind of support, albeit you've seen the membership earlier on, but NMIS's remit is much broader. and our job is to connect with all the manufacturing companies in Scotland. And as I said earlier on, the probably a couple of thousand SMEs that are out there. Inside the AFRC, it's a fantastic facility. It's a, you can look at the quality of the environment on the picture there. It's got the latest technologies that our member companies use and want to use, and we allow them, or we run research programs on their behalf, trying to use these pieces of equipment and materials in different and more effective and efficient ways. Big project that we've got is expanding the AFRC. So the pictures you can see on the screen now are a £21 million project, which is to develop what's called the Future Forge. It's a unique piece of equipment that will be the only one in the world. It's a 2,000-ton hydraulic press, massive bit of kit. You can see that in the scale and the photos there. It's got multi capabilities, but the part of the attraction of it is it can forge pieces from 1 kilo up to 1 ton, and there aren't many forges around that can do 1 ton pieces. So it's a really exciting opportunity. We've already got lots of industry interest from aerospace and energy. I know that there are other applications because there aren't many people that can do research with pieces at that scale. So the Future Forge is a great thing, and it will be operational round about May this year. The Lightweight Manufacturing Centre, so the clue's in the title, it's all about lightweight materials, composites, new applications, new products that can be designed and made using these materials. As I said earlier on, and as you guys know, it's a huge growth position, a huge growth sector, the lightweighting of everything basically. So we've got a team in there. That's more of a start-up compared to the AFRC. We've got about a dozen specialist engineers and technicians in that team. You can see them working on equipment on the pictures on the screen. To give you an idea of the kind of calibre of people we've got in there, the guy that runs the LMC used to be lead engineer at Red Bull Formula One. So we're talking about a small team, but a very specialist team. You can see there some of the equipment that we're installing and have installed. So it's a growing facility as we speak. Lots of different projects. We've got a couple of pictures there to show you one of the biggest ones, which is the research and development of a lightweight composite wind turbine blade for obvious reasons. And you can see the guys on there loading it onto the back of the truck. Other programs we've got in the lightweighting team are working with Baker Hughes, Williams Engineering, there's aerospace applications in there, but also a growing interest from motorsport. And obviously Ian's his name, Ian coming from Red Bull, and he was with Williams before. We've got a ready contact into that sector, which is, there's a lot of opportunity and interest around that. The digital factory, so talked about it earlier on, and it's a big programme for Scottish Government as well. It's one of the Scottish Government priorities. Every organisation that's operating now and in the future at some point will get involved in some level of digital capability. One of the messages we're trying to get out to the smaller organisations is that digital and its application doesn't have to be for shiny new, brand new equipment and robots. You can actually gain a lot from applying those technologies to existing equipment, the connectivity, the ability to monitor and manage data, the sensors that are now available at pretty reasonable costs mean that you can control your process in a way that you probably weren't able to before. So there's a lot of optimization and automation capabilities that come even for old machinery, 20 years old plus, as many of the engineering companies around Scotland are still operating with those kinds of equipment. So it's super high tech. It's all about data analytics, artificial intelligence and connectivity, automation, virtual augmented reality, additive manufacturing, machining, design engineering. All of those elements are included in it. And this is going to be in the new facility. So it's going to be brand new. It's going to be full of the latest technology. and we hope to be working with all the big players to create a really unique experience. We're benchmarking with one of the world-renowned centres in Singapore, and we believe that we can match their capability, at least match it. So it's a really exciting part of our capability, and it's obviously one that's really of value to all manufacturing in Scotland. How it's going to be laid out, just to show you, we're going to create the different zones, the aim being to cover all the different aspects of and capability around digital manufacturing. We're also going to have a control room, so an immersive zone as it's called. It looks a wee bit like the flight deck of the Starship Enterprise, frankly. But these are real technologies. These are real possibilities. The idea there is to show the level of connectivity they can have from your machinery and your equipment, and how you can use visual management and supervision systems all linked up in a digital way. It's also going to be linked up digitally to networks all across the UK. So we're going to demonstrate the capability of connectivity between sites as well. So it's a really interesting part of the whole proposition. And you can see how the picture on the right-hand side is where the second floors, and there's going to be a pier out to the middle of the digital factory with classrooms over it and all the rest. So it's going to be a really tricky environment. Manufacturing Skills Academy, clearly skills underpin everything that we do. You can have the fanciest technology that you want, but if you don't have someone capable of exploiting its potential, then you're missing a trick. So Manufacturing Skills Academy is a really important part of our development. Where we are at the moment is it's a small team, so again, that's a kind of small start-up team for us, but we're already very active. We secured a significant part of the National Training Transformation Fund, which was launched by Scottish Government as part of the recovery plan. And there's a significant piece of work we're doing there, which is about really, you've heard it in the press, and you've probably also experienced it. We've got a crop of graduates coming onto the job market, and there's very little there for them. So rather than have all these guys going to waste in their capability and their enthusiasm and all these other things that we don't want to let wane, we're going to recruit 30 graduates in the first instance, and we're going to give them a graduate training programme experience supported by NMIS. We will place them in companies around Scotland for free, so we will pay them. So you'll get a graduate engineer for free, and we'll train them and support the training of them through your organisation. And our commitment as well is to add the specifics of sustainable technology and digital. So when these guys finish their training, they pop onto the job market at that point with some really good capability and skill sets that companies need. So as I said, we've started at that. It looks like we might get an expansion on that programme. And the other proposition we were looking at, which is it's being worked on as we speak, is the possibility of apprentices. So we had put a proposal together to recruit 100 apprentices for exactly the same logic. Let's try and give these youngsters some support in their career at a time when it's really difficult. Similar kind of model, that's still being worked through. So the graduate scheme is the one we launched a few weeks ago. The plan here is in the first instance, keep the facility, the Skills Academy, quite small and tight. We think the priority for us there is to educate management levels, decision maker levels, executive levels on these new technologies, the benefits, so that when they come to making their decisions on investments, they're well informed. The idea of doing that is that it complements what's already out there. We've got a very strong college network with a lot of capacity to train apprentices. So we're not going to overlap with that just yet. The aim is that there's a second phase to NMIS's development. So assuming that things go well, we'll build a large-scale skills academy connected to the NMIS building that I've shown you in the fly-through earlier on. And that could potentially double the size of the facility. So at 20,000 square metres, you're talking about a really big facility with lots of capability. and a good part of that will be around skills development. Temporary workshop space, I talked about that earlier on. This is the idea of having a pop-up factory opportunity. So companies and organisations, not only can they connect with us and our technologies and our people, they can actually bring their machinery alongside us, and we can help them install it, set it up, prove it, test it, build their prototype products, train their people and get them up to speed so that when they then either take the kit back to their factories or they buy more of that kit, they've got a set of skills and competences that allow them to do that successfully. The big project that we've got in there at the moment is with Boeing. So we've got a 12 million R&D program with, you know, as it says, the largest aerospace company in the world. So that's a massive opportunity for us. It's going great. They love us. We had a recent review with them, and they explained that because of the COVID situation, there was a lot of changes and cutbacks being made in certain other projects and changing the timescales on some of the work that they're doing. Our project was one of a small number that were protected, and they're actually talking to us now about expanding the scope of that project. So that's great. Building a reputation with someone, you know, an organisation like Boeing is where we need to be. We've also got other state-of-the-art advanced engineering equipment in there, a lot of additive manufacturing, 3D metal printing capabilities, etc. So stuff that's going to be extremely useful to lots of companies around us in Scotland. As I said earlier on, and as you probably know, we're also part of the High Value Manufacturing Catapult. This is a network of 7 centres, albeit that some of the centres have offshoots and additional technology centres like we do with the Afrc and the LMC. So the NMIS site is the only one that's in Scotland, so that's our remit is to look after the region of Scotland, clearly. It's a big organisation. When you add all the groups together, there's over 2,000 research engineers, scientists and technicians in that network. So it's a huge resource for manufacturing in the UK. Total asset value, nearly 800 million. Supported 6,800 projects in 2019, 2020, and worked with 4,700 SME businesses as well. So a really significant contribution to the development of manufacturing in the UK. So one of the things that we are describing to potential companies and customers of ours is that not only have we got our capability, which is growing as I described earlier on, around digital and lightweighting and all the additive capabilities, etc., but we've also got access to the technologies on the screen. So the Catapult more or less covers every manufacturing technology you can think of. So it's not just that you can come and work with NMIS and get supported by NMIS. We are a gateway. We can signpost you to other parts of the network and give you access to world-leading capability in just about every kind of manufacturing and technical area or sector that you might be interested in. So I'm coming to the end of my my little overview. Give us opportunity to have some questions. So it's all about the future of manufacturing in Scotland. It's about making Scottish businesses able to grow and develop technology in a more seamless way and a less risk, lower risk way. It's about safeguarding and creating jobs across the country. And it's about making an impact in our economy and bringing in international investment back into Scotland. And as I've said in a number of parts of the presentation, underpinned by the ability to develop the skills and the competences that manufacturing needs now and in the future. So that's the end of my slideshow. Hopefully that gives you a good view and understanding of NMIS, what we're about, what we're working on. Clearly we're still in a growth phase, but we are open for business. And it's a really, really exciting place to be, doing all the kind of things that we're all passionate about, the best engineering, the best guys, and doing a good thing. We're there to help companies. We're not there to chase after profit. We're there to help other companies secure their business plans and their futures. So it's great to be part of a really dynamic team as well. So thanks for that, guys. Yes, the opportunity now is to open up to questions.
So I'll try to change the display to, if you stop sharing, we can move to gallery mode, I think. So we can see, and if people have any questions, if you'd like to put them into the chat, or if you feel brave, raise your hand and you can
Bruce.
So I can see Bruce has quickly got his hand up.
Bruce has got his hand up.
Okay, quick comment, very interesting. Glad to see you're really up to date. Henry Ford said you could have any car so long as it was black. I noticed in your flyover every car was white. So that's really nice to know, because that's all you can get today. My question was, if you solved so much with the PPE stuff, what lessons did you learn about rapid solving problem under pressure?
I think the first thing I would say, I wasn't in the team when they did this. They did this through May and June, but what I understand were the key points was the right collaboration with the right people, decision makers, people like NMIS and engineers around the table with a real burning bridge, and it focused everyone's mind clearly. And I think that's a benefit that we've got. Scotland as a country, we're small enough to be agile, but we're also big enough to actually have resources to make some significant things happen. And I think the ingredients for success around that PPE project were we were able to identify companies in Scotland who weren't making PPE, but we knew what kind of technical capability they had, and we knew that it could translate into PPE type processes. So we were able to bring our network together and put it in front of the agenda from Scottish Government, and it worked brilliantly. My understanding is the turnover of that supply chain now is about 250 million a year. So there's 250 million worth of manufacturing revenue that wasn't there before we started. So a huge opportunity, and so much so, Bruce, that Scottish Government recognised the power of that approach. And so what they're going to do is, as we all know, they've got some significant spend programmes, and they've got their priority programmes for the future. They're going to come to us with the next 3 or 4 big spend programmes and see if we can replicate that PPE experience. So, for example, they've got to replace all the heating systems in the social housing around Scotland. It's a project of about £1.2 billion. They want green, they want sustainable technology. So they're coming to us to say, okay, this is rather than going straight out to procurement and probably finding the cheapest bidder, China and whatever, they're going to let us have a crack at it as well. So an opportunity for us to identify companies and organisations around Scotland that could be the supply chain for that technology. And when you're talking about billions of pounds in some of these spend programmes, I mean, the opportunities are huge. So lots of lessons have been learnt from that experience. Clearly, COVID was a particular context. But if we can replicate that same kind of collaborative working and same kind of dynamic to get things done, along with our technology and capability to join the dots, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do it again.
Do you think that the COVID helped you to focus more accurately on what was required than sometimes in projects you don't know exactly what you're trying to do?
No, absolutely. And you know, tragically, people were dying. You know, that's the, you know, I'm not sure I've ever been in a position where you would have more motivation. You're actually saving lives by doing this work. So protocols, processes, some of the kind of slow and long, deliberate kind of decision-making process were all crunched up and delivered at speed. So I think that the COVID was a particular context, and maybe it wouldn't be practical to deliver at the same speed again, but to deliver a 250 million supply chain in 3 months, that's pretty fancy shooting. So I don't think we need to go that fast with the other programmes, but it shows the capability when people's minds are focused.
Okay, I can see Marcello has his hand raised. Marcello?
Thanks, John, for the comprehensive introduction to the Institute. And as an academic myself, who is trying to bridge the gap between fundamental research and development of technology, could you give a little more details on how a person like myself could get engaged in collaboration and participation in the Institute? Thank you.
So we work with universities. We are operated by Strathclyde University, so they are a big part of what we do. We're working with other universities around the UK, various different research projects, different characters, and I guess what I would say to you is understanding a little bit about our remit. If you're working in that area, then opportunities to bring your kinds of whatever projects or research you're thinking about to our team, and we can work on how to develop it if it's appropriate. Mm-hmm. But we do lots of work with lots of different universities and academics.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Juan Carlos.
Yes. Hi. Thank you very much for the introduction. Definitely, it's really good. And you mentioned Cpd opportunities there as well. And well, I'm very curious actually about knowing more about manufacturing myself. And this rings a bell definitely about, I don't know, like some modules or something you can deliver online now with the COVID or potentially. But can you please explain a bit more of the Cpd opportunities there? Yeah, sure. So we are doing that. So we've got modules being created around a project we're working on in Ayrshire, a digital capability for another centre in Ayrshire, and we're building digital training modules right now. So we've got a portfolio right now of some of that content. The capability we will have in the Skills Academy is to operate from sort of bespoke standalone technical modules all the way through to PhD level. So we're going to cover all parts of the spectrum. We already have a PhD program and we're expanding that. I talked a bit about the graduate program that we've got, but yeah, and the remote working thing has obviously pushed everyone's hand a little bit, and we now have capability that we can run modules remotely, and I think that's inevitably going to be part of what we deliver going forward. But all things manufacturing, the start point for us is, as I said earlier on, it's about educating managers and decision makers so that they understand the technologies, where things are going, so that they're better able to make the right kind of technology investment decisions. That's the start for us in a kind of more basic way. The graduate program and the apprentice program have come along because of the COVID pandemic, and it's an opportunity for us to support where we can. So yeah, the facility will be able to go all the way up to PhD level.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Concur?
Just to say in response to Marcelo's question that John didn't mention the NMIS. I'm sorry, I seem to be mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
John didn't mention the NMIS industrial doctorate program, which quite a few universities, a lot of the universities across Scotland are involved in. So the University of Edinburgh, we've got about 6 of those that are sponsored. So where you have part funding from companies and part funding from NMIS. And we're into our 2nd year on those, and they're very successful. And likewise, Harriet Watt would have about a half dozen as well. So there's a partnership between NMIS and the Scottish Research Partnership in Engineering, SRPE, which has a model like that for part industry funding and part government funding of PhD. So that's a really good way to get involved with NMIS.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Thanks for jumping in.
Any other questions?
Hi, Jonathan. Good evening, John. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And yeah.
Just a couple of points. First of all, where do you get all your funding from? Is it mainly government, or is it government and industry? The main question there is, should government find that an election needs a little bit more pizzazz. They may withdraw funding from what you're doing and put it into something a bit more spectacular from a public perception. Are you dependent on government funding at the moment?
Yeah, so we operate on a similar basis to other kind of innovation centres. So the idea is we get funding, and our job is to multiply it by 3. So you've got government funding, you've got funding, and then you've got the work that you bring in, working with the companies like I showed you earlier on, in the Boeings and Rolls Royces. So it's not 100% dependent on it, but it's a significant part, obviously. Yeah. The thing I would reassure you about in terms of our funding, and I hope this is true, I believe it is, it's recognised that right now manufacturing's never been in a tougher spot. You know, like you said earlier, you've got Brexit, you've got coming out of the pandemic, the impact on your supply chains. Who knows who's be left standing when the furlough stops? And then you've got the huge transformation into the sustainable technologies to address the climate emergency. That you know, whenever we've talked to government, they are absolutely clear that's a huge priority for them, and they're committed to it. So I've not got any sense of pulling away funding or support. I think there is a reality, which is there's a lot of money around at the moment. I mean, it's actually quite mind-boggling how much is out there, because there's a real effort to kind of jumpstart things coming out of COVID. The worry going further forward is how long is that going to be there, you know, and if and when does it dry up? So that is a concern for the future. But right now, we are getting very reassuring feedback from government and huge support. We did, you know, the part of the visioning work that we did to create the draft I showed you earlier on. We had a session with Scottish Government, Scottish Enterprise, SDS, and all the other agencies in the room, senior level, and it was fantastic. We got a real clear steer from government. We actually made the statement, the government is going to rely on NMIS more and more in the future. We want you guys to help us build manufacturing policy. You know, that's music to our ears. We work with centres in the network down south, and they're working out how to, you know, politicians move, governments change. How do they remain connected to the decision makers? We've handed it on a plate. Yeah, it's fantastic. So we have a position of influence and an opportunity to lead the policy in the right direction. So that shows me already that they recognise the importance of what we do, and everything I've had so far has been about committing to that.
Okay, now just a comment actually I've got as well. Quite a few years ago now, I was involved in a teaching company scheme, which is a similar model to your putting graduates into industry. And I must admit, it worked incredibly well. You can dedicate graduates to a job that the industry itself can't change. You know, they were there to put a CAD/CAM system in, which worked really, really well. And I think if that kind of strength of feelings there behind these schemes, they can really, really show dividends once you get them off the ground. I think it's just convincing people sometimes to start them. But once they get going, they really can be wonderful.
Yeah.
But thanks very much for evening.
No, it's a pleasure. And just on that, you know, I said earlier on, we secured part of the funding from Scottish Government. So we secured a £2 million fund. So we've got a £2 million funding to do that. So working with youngsters and bridging the gap that they're finding themselves in at the moment. We can't cover everybody because it's just such a big population. But the government are giving us signals that they like what we're doing enough that they might ask us to do more. So I agree, it's a very important thing to do, and our experience of it is it's very positive. So
yeah, well, it's cheap. It's very cheap for the companies.
Yeah.
And if it produces results for them, it's a no-brainer for them. I mean, that's the issue there.
Well, it's free for the companies.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You know, how often does someone come along and say, you can have this talented engineer, we'll support training them, and we're going to tool them up with digital and sustainable technology, and for that you don't spend
anything.
And it's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that leads very well into a question from Trev in the chat here. Trev has said, how has NMIS identified the skills required for future trainees, apprentices? Does this part of the organisation compete or complement other training organisations and colleges?
So we are led by the technology. So our research and development strategy informs what we need to deliver in all aspects of what we do. So that's where we get the steer on what skills are going to be required in the future. In terms of whether we're complementary or in competition, it's like I said earlier on, that's why we're starting with the kind of executive management training modules, because in and around where we are in Renfrewshire, the feedback we're getting from Skills Development Scotland is there's a lot of capacity there. There's not a capacity issue in that part of Scotland. It's, you guys are Fife and Edinburgh. I'm looking across the river to Dundee, and in our part of the world, my part of the world, there isn't that capacity. So at the moment in Glasgow and around Renfrewshire, there's enough capability and capacity to look after the apprentice level training. So we're going to focus in the first instance on the bit that isn't there, and the idea of that is to make it complementary. We're not there to cut anyone's grass. At the end of the day, we're all part of a team working for Scotland, and in that regard, we're establishing a forum which includes the Scottish Funding Council and Skills Development Scotland, and we'll meet on a monthly basis. And the idea is we wrote a paper for Scottish Government and SE to say we need to connect all the parts of the network. So we need to have a coherent Scottish offering to manufacturing and engineering. So we're going to have a monthly forum with SMAS, SDS, Scottish Funding Council, SE, ourselves and others to make sure we understand what are the prospects, what are the opportunities, and how do we get joined up so that we don't overlap with each other. We actually complement, because there's no point in spending public money twice to get the same thing. So we're aware of that challenge, and we're trying to find ways to make sure that we don't compete.
Okay, thanks. And I can see Dorothy has a question.
Hi there. So as you're recruiting and going forward, are you finding or anticipating any particular skills gaps in the people you're recruiting?
We've done really well so far, Dorothy. Always mindful of it might not just be as simple as putting an advert out. There are opportunities at the moment in recruitment, unfortunately. There are a lot of good engineers, good technical people, and
oh dear.
You've frozen. I don't know if you've frozen for everyone else, but you froze for me, unfortunately.
I think it's frozen for... Still there. Sorry, John, you froze. Could you rewind?
Yeah, sorry, where did I freeze?
At the beginning of your answer.
All right, okay. It was a great answer.
Can you repeat the question, Dorothy, and remind us what...
Yeah, so I was asking if there are any particular gaps you're finding in skills as you...
I answered it completely, thanks very much. Next question. No, am I breaking up again?
No, it's good.
I'll come off video. Am I back?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, it's okay.
I'll have another go. So we're actually finding that it's working okay at the moment. We're managing to recruit the right calibre of people. We've got some fantastic guys in the team. And as I said earlier on, it's growing very quickly. So we've managed to recruit over 100 of these calibre of people, PhD level research engineers and other specialities in just over a year. We've grown our digital team to about 50, I think I said that earlier on, and we are going to go and look for more. So at the moment, my team is drawing up a list. They reckon they need 60 people. I don't think we need 60 more people at the moment. So there'll be that inevitable to and fro over how much resource do we need. But, we're sitting here looking at, with the work that we've got in the pipeline, we need to go and recruit another 60 people, which is fantastic. There may be, when we get down the line with some of those other big recruitments, we might get to the point we start to struggle a little bit. But at the moment, touch wood, it's going okay. We have a specific problem area, which is about the forge masters, you know, the really highly skilled forging capabilities. There's not many of them around the UK anymore, and they're really hard to get hold of. So that's one area that is challenging at the moment.
Okay. I think we've maybe got time for one last question. Has anyone got a burning issue?
No.
Okay. If not, I'll say a few words to thank John. So those of us with grey hair can recall back 15 or 20 years ago that government appeared to have little interest in manufacturing as a subject or a sector. And because of this, there was absolutely no understanding in the corridors of power about what resources and facilities manufacturing needed to thrive. But I think our speaker this evening has shown how much has changed. The governments of every shade have finally woken up to the fact that we need to create a national infrastructure of facilities and support that hopefully will one day rival what you see in places like Germany. However, I think you'll agree that our speakers' to-do list is daunting. Hydrogen, electrification, post-COVID recovery, manufacturing productivity, SME innovation is quite a list. But on the plus side, our speakers demonstrated that there's going to be a world-class facility behind this. I think when the Future Forge, the Lightweighting Centre, the Digital Factory, each individually are impressive, but together, I think it's really a breathtaking scope. I was going to say that we need to build a visit into our program next year. But actually, the more you spoke, the more I realized that one visit wasn't going to be enough. I think we'll have to have several coach loads of evening visits over to Renfrew. So, as mechanical
those comments, Jonathan, and you know, we can't wait till the day we get the place open. And part of our job is to get people excited and inspired around technology and manufacturing and engineering, all the things that I guess we all have spent our careers doing and getting excited about. So yeah, you can come with as many buses as you want and as many times as you want. I'm sure we'll be able to squeeze you in somewhere.
I think we'll have no difficulty. The Future Forge alone looked like a trip worth making to see that in action. So as mechanical engineers, we all know that manufacturing is crucial to the health of our profession. So let's wish our speaker every success and thank him for giving us an inspiring glimpse of the future.
Thank you very much.
So I could just very quickly, I'll share my screen. Our next event, we have two, actually this week, there's a talk by the Railway Division on Thursday evening, introducing the Azuma train. Is that right, Paul? Or it was Jim?
Azuma, something like that.
And then the last of our talks in this year's program is on the 11th of May, which is a renewable energy company in Edinburgh, unlike any that you've ever seen before, called Graviticity, who are developing a very novel system that works by dropping very slowly large weights down deep holes that are attached to electric motors. So well worth a visit. If you have any ideas for speakers or visits for next year's program, please email either myself or Paul, and we can investigate incorporating them in the program next year.
Excuse me, Jonathan. Just wondering, is there a link to the railway talk on Thursday, or how do we register?
Yeah, that's my question.
Railway site, on the Railway Division site and the Scottish Region IMECI site as well. We're not running this one.
I'm just wondering, would it be possible to send out an email to the members in the region, just giving them the links?
It's already on the link is already on the region's page on near you.
Okay, thanks.
And they have this time last night they only had 35 places left. It's an online event.
Okay, so I think that...
If I can give it further publicity, I will, but I haven't been in touch with the Railways Division. They're managing this one on their own.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that concludes our business for tonight. I think later so we've got one more talk next May, in May, and then we'll be organising an AGM at some point in the summer. Okay, John, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, John.
And we'll say good night to everybody.
Good night.